Today we'll be covering the Gen V volt-based auto changeover VVT zone control system. It controls up to 20 zones and utilizes a hub thermostat to send commands and configure our Gen V controller and zone thermostats. We're going to go ahead and start off with the wiring aspects of the control system and how it's connected with this 3D overview to each zone and damper it controls. Your Gen V control system is powered by an independent 24 volt transformer, and then we daisy chain our 24 volts and our Zonex twisted pair communication wire from the Gen V controller to each zone thermostat and continue daisy chaining that all the way through until you dead end at your last thermostat. The Gen V controller supports up to 20 zones per controller. Each thermostat in turn controls or powers its perspective damper. So go ahead and wire in using 18.3 to the damper that it is controlling. The Gen V controller comes with several sensors, a leaving and return air sensor, and you'll want to install those appropriately. And then the controller also wires into the rooftop unit or split system that it is controlling. We're going to dive down a little more detail into the wiring on the Gen V controller. So let's go ahead and switch over to our manual, which you should have received with your Gen V control system. Alright, so in the instructions we give a detailed description of how to wire in the Gen V controller to each thermostat. So we'll go ahead and cover that here in more detail. Alright, as before, we talked about the Gen V controller gets wired in by an independent transformer that wires into tier 1, tier 2 in on the Gen V controller. Do note the system is polarity sensitive, so you want to make sure that your hot leg off your transformer lands on TR1, TR2. We're then going to wire out of the TR1, TR2 terminals using 18.2 thermostat wire and run that to our first zone thermostat. In this case, that is our hub thermostat. And we're going to land the wires on TR1, TR2 and continue that daisy chain all the way through until we dead end at the last thermostat tied to that Gen V controller. When wiring your wire, try to minimize any wire nuts or butt connectors. We want to have nice clean poles. This in turn helps reduce any potential for voltage drop or loss. Now on the communication side of the system, we use RS-45 communication. So we have supplied you with the Zonex twisted pair wire that we spec for our controls. Utilizing this wire, you will wire it into the A and B terminals and daisy chain that to and from each zone thermostat as well. We want to We want to go ahead and run that to the first thermostat and land that at A and B and continue that daisy chain all the way through, landing on the A and B terminals. We want to make sure we don't use any wire nuts or butt connectors anywhere on the communication bus. It's critical to a clean and noise-free communication. So no wire nuts or butt connectors to be utilized there. Alright, wiring into our dampers. Each thermostat has an RC, RO, and MC terminal. So using 18 gauge thermostat wire, 18.3, you're going to go ahead and wire up to the perspective damper that it is controlling. And you'll wire it up and match it at the terminals, MC, RO, and RC. Alright, so moving on. The Gen V controller, as mentioned before, has several sensors that are utilized. These sensors are important to the operation of the Gen V controller. So we want to go ahead and make sure we land them in the appropriate spots. So you have a leaving air sensor This should be installed in the supply trunk, roughly 18 to 24 inches downstream of your coil, but before the bypass. This sensor is utilized for capacity control as well as staging. If you need to extend the sensor out to get to that portion of the plenum, you can extend it out using 18 gauge thermostat wire and wire nuts or butt connectors. There's also a return air sensor that you want to install into the return air trunk, and make sure that is installed before your bypass as well. A couple other things to note on the Gen V controller. We do have several status lights. So your blue light here is your power light, and you have status lights for the operation or output the controller is making. So a green light would mean fan is running. 2 red lights would be an indicator of first and second stage heat. 2 yellow lights or amber lights would be indication of first and second stage cool. And then we have a secondary green light at the bottom that says OCP, and that is utilized or lit when the system is in occupied mode. And if you're running economizers or anything that utilize an OPC terminal, you can wire that up, and that will bring your economizer awake or occupied and start running its designated settings it's been given to. Alright, last portion of the wiring is wiring in our rooftop or split system. So using 18.7 or 8, you'll go ahead and wire it in accordingly. So off the Gen V, you're going to wire to your unit, and you're going to match it up RG, Y1, Y2, W1, W2, and if you have that OCP terminal, you can land the OCP. So just match them up according to what your rooftop unit's operation is. Alright, moving along, there are a couple additional terminals on the Gen V controller. We have what's called ADR. ADR is Automatic Demand Response. This is utilized with utility companies. It's a third-party control that wires into the ADR terminal on our controller. And when we are seeing high energy demands, the power companies or utility companies can send a signal out that will tell our controller to set back all the thermostats by 4 degrees to help reduce energy consumption during this time period. So if you need to utilize that, you can. We also have what's called FDD. This is the fault detection diagnostic feature. This terminal allows you to hook up an economizer to our controller that offers the FDD output or input. And when your economizer has failed or there's an issue with it, it will send a signal to our controller. Then in turn, our controller will put an error message on your hub thermostat saying FDD error, and that is your indicator that your economizer needs to be serviced or looked at. All right, moving on to the commissioning and startup of our Gen V control system. Here is an example of our thermostat and what it would look like in its standard operating mode. So to access the advanced features of the thermostat, you're just going to go ahead and tap on the 3 white bars. This will take you into the menu options and allow you to configure the thermostat. So in this system, we need to configure our thermostats, each with its own unique ID. So if we had a Gen V control system with, say, 10 zones, we're going to ID them 1 through 10. Do note that your hub thermostat is hard ID'd as number 1, so you will not need to ID it. You'll need to ID the remainder 9 thermostats with an ID ranging from 2 through 10. So set the ID is pretty simple. Tap on the 3 white bars. You'll be introduced to the menus available to configure that thermostat. One at the very top is going to be ID or set ID. Go ahead and tap on that, and then using your up and down arrows, you'll go ahead and select the desired ID for that thermostat. Once you've selected it, go ahead and tap on the little white house in the right hand corner. that will save the information and take you back to the previous menu. Once you've set all your IDs, the next step is we want to confirm our damper operation or type. So why you set the ID, when you go back, you'll want to go ahead and select your damper type. Each thermostat can control a number of different dampers, so round or rectangular. These round and rectangular dampers are power open, power closed dampers, and the thermostat will modulate those dampers accordingly. If you have a system that is 5 tons or less, you can use a spring-loaded damper. And if you're utilizing a VRF system with our SAV or smart air valve dampers, then you'd want to configure the thermostat for VRF. So go ahead and set your thermostats for the proper damper operation that you have installed and that it is going to be controlling. Alright, now that we've set our dampers and our IDs, we want to go ahead and make our way to our hub thermostat. Do note that each hub thermostat is different in color. So it is black, and that is your hub. All other thermostats are white. So when you're looking throughout the system and trying to figure out what thermostat your hub thermostat, it should be designated by the color black. Go ahead and from the hub thermostat, you'll tap on the 3 white bars in the right hand corner, and you're going to go to the system diagnostic option within that menu. Once you're in there, you're going to see a screen that looks similar to this, and this is our diagnostic screen confirming that we are connected and communicating to our Gen V controller, and in this case 4 zone thermostats that are tied to it. If for whatever reason we are not communicating with any of the thermostats that we should have, you'll see disconnected. This is an indicator that we either have a wiring or polarity issue, or we have a stat ID conflict. So go ahead and make way to that thermostat and address them accordingly, whether it be an ID or wiring issue. If at any time you need any help during startup or any questions, you can call Zonex Tech Support, and any one of the techs should be able to help you troubleshoot and work through any problems you're running into. Alright, so once we've confirmed we are communicating with all our zone thermostats, we'll want to go ahead and start configuring our Gen V control system. Alright, on to configuring our Gen V control system. There are a number of different features and functions that are offered via the Gen V controller. So from your hub thermostat, you're going to go ahead and select Configure Gen V. And we're going to just scroll through each one individually and make the changes according to the operation you would expect. So setting our unit type, we offer 5 different unit type functions. So gas, electric operation, heat pump, O or B operation, and then VRF. So go ahead and select the proper operation that you would expect for your system. Your limits, so setting our limits, if you set them for the factory default 45 and 145, this will simply protect your system from overheating or overcooling. So if we are cooling and we break the 45 degree low cutout, we will go ahead and go into a purge. We'll warm up your coil. After 5 minutes, we'll check that temperature again, and if it is warmed and above 45, we'll go ahead and bring the cool coil back in. And same thing for the high side if you break the 145. These are adjustable. So on the low side, it's adjustable from 40 to 50 degrees. And on the high side, it's adjustable from 100 to 160. Set second stage. This is a time and temp control. So you can go ahead and adjust the time that we look at the temperature limit on the system. So for example, if you're making a cool call, after 3 minutes we will check the temperature And if it is above 58 degrees, we will then allow second stage to energize and continue to bring in additional cooling. If it's below 58 degrees, we'll leave second stage off and continue cooling on the system. If you want to delay the second stage from being looked at, you can adjust it anywhere from 3 to 30 minutes. Set Maverick mode. This allows you to see outlying calls. So if you enable this, and for example, you have 3 cool calls and then a heat call comes in, the Maverick vote will see that call, and based on a time given between 3 and 30 minutes, the timer will start. Once that time lapses, we'll then drop the call, go into a purge cycle. After 5 minutes, we'll bring in the heat call, and we will run that heat call till it satisfies. Morning warm-up. If you'd like to pre-warm your zones based on an algorithm and temperature out of range, it will check, and if it needs to, it will pre-warm your zones prior to them going occupied. Set time and date. You want to set the time and date. Once you set this time and date and save that, the information is broadcast system-wide, and all your thermostats will update and go occupied. So set that according to your time zone and the day. Daylight savings. If you follow daylight savings, you'll want to go ahead and enable this, so it will set back that hour or forward, and you won't have to adjust your clock. Set vacation. You can set up to 20 vacation schedules on the system. So go ahead and set your first vacation with a begin and end date. And then if you would like to do additional, go ahead and select a second vacation, so forth and so on. Do note, if you do set a vacation, you will have to come back every year and adjust those dates so they coincide with the new vacation schedule for that year. If you need to change the temperature format for the system from Fahrenheit to Celsius, just go ahead and choose Celsius, and that will go ahead and change all the thermostats and control system to Celsius operation. Set override hours. You can adjust the amount of override hour operations anywhere from 2 to 8 hours. So go ahead and adjust this according to what you think the end user might like for their override operation hours. Setting your fan mode. If you want to run your fan on or constant during occupied hours, you can go ahead and change it to the on, and then during unoccupied hours, the fan will run in auto mode. So make those adjustments according to your requirements in the area or your region. Set van schedule. This is a newer feature to the Gen V control system. This came about due to COVID and wanting to run the fan on its own schedule. So if you're running UV lights or air scrubbers, you can give a schedule to the fan, and you can do up to 4 schedules per day. So go ahead and set the schedule according to what the operation you want. So if you want it pre-occupancy, then you can set it between, say, 4 and 6 a.m. The fan will run and move air throughout the building. During post-occupancy, you can go ahead and run it from 6 to 8. So set it according to what you want. If you do not want to use this feature, go ahead and set the time to 12 a.m., and this will disable the fan schedule. Air balance. When you're ready to air balance the system, go ahead and place it into the on position. When you do this, it will send out a global call to open up all the dampers and bring the fan on, which in turn will then allow you to balance your butterfly dampers and your bypass. And then once you're done, go ahead and place it in the off position. From the Gen V control system, from the hub thermostat, you can go in and look at the Gen V controller and confirm its operation. So you can confirm it's communicating with the hub thermostat. You can check your leaving and return air temperatures. If you're using the ADR FDD features, they will tell you if they've been energized or on, and then it will also tell you the status of the Gen V controller if it's in vent, heating, or cooling, or in changeover. So you can confirm that all from the hub thermostat without having to visually go check the control system. All right, next up is configuring our thermostats. So from the hub thermostat, you'll go down and select Configure Stats. Within the Configure Stat feature, it will allow you to make global or individual calls to each zone thermostat in the system. So we're going to go over those features. So from your hub thermostat, when you select that Configure Stat option, you can go ahead and use the up and down arrows and select individual thermostats, or you can select the global feature. And to do that, you'll just use the down arrow, you'll drive past number 1, and it will say global. Once you see global, tap on the arrow to the right, and that will take you into the global configuration mode. Okay, once you're into the global configuration mode, go ahead and set occupied temperatures you would like the system to operate at, as well as you can go ahead and set your unoccupied temperatures that you would like it to run at as well. Alright, if you choose or would like to lock out thermostats, you can lock them out individually and or globally. We offer 2 lock options. One is plus or minus 2 degrees from set point, or you can do what we call the no variance lock, or plus or minus 0 degrees. And this will completely lock out the thermostat and not allow them to change the temperature at all. You can also set your modes from the hub thermostat. For all your thermostats or individually. So if you're not sure how a thermostat is set up at any particular zone, because maybe you can't get to it, you can go in and check the modes and or change it according to the operation you would like. Alright, setting the schedule. It's very simple. Once you go in, you have 4 schedule options you can set per zone. So go ahead and you want to set your first schedule first. Once you've tapped on that, follow the prompts. So tap on your arrow to the right, and then you'll go ahead and select your format you would like, so 511 or 7-day. Use the up and down arrows, select your occupied and unoccupied times. And if you want to ignore a particular day or keep a day in unoccupied mode, say Sunday in this case, because nobody was there, we'll go ahead and set the time for the same, so 12 a.m. 12 a.m. This will ignore the schedule on Sunday, keep the system in unoccupied mode, and will return to normal occupancy the next day of occupancy. So in this case, Monday at 6 a.m. If for whatever reason you want to disable or not allow a thermostat to follow the schedule, you can go ahead and disable that. So go ahead and check that according to whatever zones you want to not follow. And then you can also check device diagnostics. So from the hub thermostat, you can go in and confirm how a stat is configured and the type it is. So is it communicating with the system, the type of thermostat it is, in this case it needs to touch X, the current temperature, current occupied temperature, current mode that it's set for, and the status, whether it's in the off mode or is it calling for heating or cooling, so you can get a full snapshot of what that zone's doing. And then setting your votes. This is a majority vote based system, so they all come set up from the factory with 1 vote. If you'd like to give them more votes, you can. We go from 0 up to 3 votes. 0 gives you no value, or what we call a null vote. It will not be seen by the system. And then up to 3 votes if you want. Enable ADR. If you're using the ADR, automatic demand response feature, you want to make sure you enable this so the system recognizes that demand response. Alright, so now that we've gone through and configured our Gen V controller and our thermostat scheduling and operation that we'd like, now we'll want to go ahead and go to each individual zone thermostat and dial them in a little more for our end users. So there are two menu options available within each thermostat, which is the user menu and the advanced menu. So we're going to go over the user menu first. So if you want, there are backlight settings or adjustments we can make. So for the occupied light, we can adjust the brightness anywhere from 100% to off if the stat seems to be too bright for the end user. During unoccupied hours, if you so choose, you can set the unoccupied backlight to a different brightness and or off. A lot of contractors like to set it to the off because it will extend the backlight. So if you want to do that, go ahead and make those changes. All right, display accuracy. We offer two display accuracies. One is a full degree, so in this case 69 degrees. The other one is we show the tenths of degrees, so 69.3. So if you'd like to show the tenths of degrees, go ahead and select that, and that will show up on your main display. For whatever reason you feel the need to calibrate the thermostat or display, if it seems a little out of range, you can go ahead and calibrate it and bring it closer to the expected range it should be. Temperature format. This is a view-only option and allows you to view to see what the thermostat is set for. If you need to make any changes or something doesn't seem right, you can make those changes via the hub thermostat. From any thermostat, you can check the schedule that has been given to that zone thermostat via the hub. So go ahead and check it. If you see anything that looks wrong or needs to be adjusted, make those adjustments at the hub thermostat. And if your time and date seem to be off, or you're not quite sure and you want to double check it, from any thermostat you can check the time and date. If for whatever reason it does seem off, go ahead and make your way to the hub thermostat and make the time and date changes that are needed to put it in the right time and date. Alright, so that's the user interface. Now we have the advanced menu interface. Some of these items we've gone over. So we're going to go ahead and cover the stat ID, which we've already done. If you want to change your ID, go ahead and select it. Use the up and down arrows to select the appropriate ID. If you're utilizing auxiliary heat on the job, such as baseboard heat, you can wire that up to a thermostat, and that thermostat will energize that baseboard heat or electric duct heat, whatever you're running. So make sure you configure this according to that operation. The factory default is baseboard. If you're not running any type of auxiliary heat or baseboard heat, leave the default setting at baseboard. If you're not quite sure, give tech support a call and we can go over it with you and make sure you configure it for the right operation. Select the damper type we've gone over, your round or rectangular dampers, or if you're running a spring-loaded and or VRF damper, make sure you set it accordingly. Each thermostat allows for a different type of temp source to be reported from the thermostat. So in this case, all thermostats come with a humidity sensor. It reads the relative humidity. So if you want to display the humidity at the top of the thermostat, you can go ahead and display it. Do note we do not control dehumidification, so this merely is just a reading to let you know what the humidity is in the room. If you want to have it not show up at all, you can go ahead and select the no display. Do note that the outside and the duct displays are not available on the Gen V controller, and there's no need to bother with those. Alright, once you've configured and set everything up, you want to go ahead and adjust your menu type to user. There are a lot of times we get calls at tech support where the end user's gone into the thermostat, made adjustments, and now the thermostat doesn't seem to be quite working. So go ahead and make those adjustments and change it to user, and then this will hide all the advanced menu options so the customer can't change anything and screw up your configurations. If for whatever reason you need to go in and make a change to the advanced menu features, there's a backdoor option. So you'll go ahead and hold your finger down on the degree symbol and it will turn from white to green. Once you've done that, you've activated the advanced menu feature. Just tap on the 3 white bars in the right hand corner, and that will take you into the advanced menu options. Alright, the last feature here is diagnostic. This is a great tool to utilize on the zone thermostats. So when you go into diagnostic mode, it is going to put the stat into a test mode. It will confirm communication with your Gen V controller. But the big thing is it will also close your damper, or if you want, you can open the damper. So when you do this, it will apply 24 volts for about 60 seconds, and you'll be able to confirm that the damper is running open or running closed. So to change it, you just tap on damper, and it will say closed. Tap on it again, it will say opened. If you want to confirm that your auxiliary relays are working and that your auxiliary heat is energizing, you can go ahead and turn it on, and it will go ahead and energize that 24 volt output. Each thermostat has a red light and has a red LED and a blue LED. These illuminate when there are calls from the thermostat, so you can turn them on and off and confirm those LEDs do illuminate at the bottom of your thermostat. If you need any help or have any questions, you can give our tech department a call at 800-228-2966. Thank you for your time today.